Hello, everybody. We're all here. We're just going to let a few more people in as they come. But thank you for coming. This is really a great night for us. It's a great opportunity to share what we've been writing and to invite people in and to get some feedback and to feel if you're not read as a reader, like what is the point? So this is just an opportunity to be read before you get published, before you have a beta reader, and you're hearing it here first. You're hearing whatever we're reading. Is anybody who's reading read it to somebody else before? Is this the first reading for everyone?
First.
Yeah, me too.
So
From this book, first time, not first time reading, but first time from this book.
I've shared it.
Good. Okay. Also, as people read, you can definitely go in the chat and give them a comment. If you hear something that you really love the sentence of, just type it in and say loved X. So give the feedback that we all know we missed a beat or dropped a word. We don't need that. We all know there's a typo on page 42. What we don't know is where we land and what's great and what really has impact on people. So if you hear a sentence or an idea or a thought that you really loved, just type it in the chat as soon as you hear it. And just right now, I see that Liz is saying hello from Winnipeg. That must be a Heidi friend. Represent for Canadians. So feel free to just say hi and tell us where you're tuning in from. And I still have a waiting room open. Okay, good. Very good. We're going to start pretty soon because it's already 6 after. We'll just give people one more minute to arrive. We are missing one of our readers, but hopefully she'll come, and she happens to be last, so it'll work out fine. From Seattle and from Florida, Nancy says. Hello from Seattle, says Christian, and Heidi is from Manitoba. That must, oh, Heidi friend from Manitoba. Okay. A couple of us are from LA. I'm sure we'll have some representation from SoCal. And a couple from New Jersey. Okay, so we could get going. The reading order today, just to give you some idea of what to expect when. We have Meredith McLeod, and then Susan Schatz, myself, Julia Roberts, Michael Shaka, Heidi Hunter, then Martha Rand, and then Alinda Quinn. And we have been writing together since Memorial Day. That's right. So 30-ish days. Some of us every single day. Heidi's been very attentive. Others come in, and there's 9 writing sessions a week. You don't have to come to all of them. You can come to whatever works. We start with a prompt, which is 100% optional. If it inspires you to write something in what you're working on, then you go ahead and do it. But if it doesn't, you just work on what you're working on. Okay, so I'm going to keep my eye on the waiting room, and we'll get going. So, Martha, Meredith, I'm going to read your bio, and then I'm going to mute people and unmute you, which is always a little slow on the uptake. So let's just get started. We have Meredith McLeod, who is writing Meadow Finds Her Voice. This is a children's book that she's written, and in our program since Memorial Day. I am a lifelong learner who specializes in exploring my creative muse. I've been a working artist for over 40 years. So she's kind of transitioning from visual arts to writing arts, which is really fun and interesting. Now she's exploring writing with us. This group has given her a sense of community, a safe place to be authentic, and encouraged her in her writing. She hopes to write a memoir someday and a novel about a young woman bird illustrator in the time of James Audubon. And since she's newly retired, she's going to give herself the next 20 years to do it. And hopefully that'll be enough time. Okay, Meredith, let me go in and mute everybody, and then I'll give you the high sign. Come on.
There, now I'm unmuted. Okay. Meadow finds her voice. Meadow is an only child who never speaks out loud. All her words stay in her head with nowhere to go. She spends hours staring at the sad cherry tree outside her bedroom window. She feels sorry for that tree. Nothing grows from the branches. Then one morning, the birds start to gather. Robins, mockingbirds, rose-breasted grosbeaks, owls. They arrive daily with abundant twigs to make their homes. The cherry tree fills up quickly as they busily sing in harmony. Chirp, 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 la, 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 tweet, 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 hoot, hoot. Like the birds, Meadow keeps busy. She loves making things. Instruments out of found objects, paper masks, pancakes for breakfast, and clothes for her favorite doll. But this doesn't help with her loneliness. One day, to Meadow's surprise, leaves begin to sprout and the tree covers itself in green. I want to be like the tree. I know, I will make a hat out of twigs to welcome the birds. Then I can have friends that fly and feel big like the big blue sky. She grabs her grandmother's favorite basket and disappears into the woods. As she skips along, songs softly float out of her mouth. It feels so natural, she doesn't even notice. Chirp, 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 la, 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 tweet, 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 hoot, hoot. One by one, the birds start to arrive, each bringing a twig. Look at me, I'm as happy as can be. She sings out loud as she can. Listen to me, I have a voice, I have a choice. Chirp, 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 la, 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 hoot, hoot, tweet, tweet, tweet. Her words are heard far and wide. Children come outside to see what all the excitement is about. Come, you can help me build my hat. I'm Meadow. What's your name? What do you like to make? I like to make many things. They scurry and bumble and hurry and fumble. Eeks! Look what we've done. The hat is too big for your head. That's okay. Look at all my new friends. I can chatter away all day and we can continue to play. Let's start again. Chirp, 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 la, 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 tweet, 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 hoot, hoot. The end.
And you can unmute yourself. I can't, all I could do would be ask you to mute. But feel free to unmute yourself and let her know what you thought, what you heard, what stuck with you. I put a couple things in the chat. I loved scurry and bumble, hurry and fumble. And it seems that Martha said the same thing. Good job with the rhyming, says Mayor Blocker. So I do love the repetition of tweet, 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 tweet. You know, it's so sweet. Okay. Any other thoughts or anything? Anybody want to say something else to Meredith before we move on? It was a great reading.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Okay, and make sure you read the chat. There's quite a bit in there for that's fun and interesting. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Susan Schatz. I'll mute everybody in a minute, but first I'm just going to open her biography and tell you what she's reading. So Susan was raised in Brooklyn, and during the 60s, she was a grade school during the 60s, a grade school teacher helped her publish a poem in Red Book magazine, but she never buckled down to take herself seriously. After college, she lived and worked in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then New York City. She worked long hours in the entertainment business. In Los Angeles, she began ghostwriting script coverage for top talent agents and then international distribution and production companies before going freelance. She taught young people for a decade and found herself enrolled in the UCLA Extension Writing Program's nonfiction department. She wishes to finish her memoir and personal essays and ready them for publication. So she's reading today Forever Daddy's Girl. Mute all. You have to unmute yourself, Susan.
Over the summer months, the sale of our family's antique home was finalized. It went to a young family who appreciated its history and would keep the original design intact. That was a small comfort, as the window of opportunity had vanished, as sale prices had suddenly plummeted. The train had left the station and there was no turning back. My brother and I had flown back briefly to help Mom pack up whatever had not been ferried away by my sister to her home in New Jersey, or sent along for consignment, or gifted to local friends and neighbors. I was relieved that my sister-in-law Debbie stayed in the house with us. My kid brother's mood was dark and combative, and he was nursing a knee injury. The house no longer looked like our home, as it was prepped for purchase by the real estate team. I had planned to scoop up a pair of black lacquer and cane mid-century Knoll dining room chairs. In the end, I let my niece claim them for her very first adult apartment in New York City. Why the sudden change of heart? Under pressure, I did the math and decided to avoid excess shipping fees. Additionally, this allowed them to remain in the family for the next generation. As eldest daughter, I instead settled for tasteful tchotchkes to adorn the living room fireplace mantle of our coastal condo, kitchen collectibles, books, and some framed art. My mother kept the bulk of the art collection and wallpapered their small one-bedroom apartment with the remaining Lifetime collection. She clung to the Bauhaus dining room set also. Shipping 8 large boxes from Connecticut to Los Angeles was a small fortune, but well worth it. Mom had been shuttling back and forth between the senior residence and the house, carefully shielding my father from what was taking place. When the house was in escrow, she had gone through the attic storage and photo albums from downstairs, intentionally putting them aside for safekeeping. She surprised my brother and I with a box of mementos for each, months after she had sifted through everything, at the senior residence, at her leisure, with her predictable OCD stamp of approval. She was the matriarch and was still resistant to relinquishing decisions to my sister. My sister was resistant to being POA, so tensions were high. It had not been pleasant. Now it was all over. Everything was in my possession to process, instead of buried in my parents' attic. I was pleased to discover a small framed black and white photo of my father. I put it in a spot where I could admire it, in private, in my bedroom. My father's smile exudes a warm and toothy grin. His eyes crinkle and sometimes close when he is grinning. In this photo, he looks young, innocent, and hopeful, and his genuine spirit shines through. He has all of the hair on his head, and he is dressed predictably well in a tweed jacket, shirt, and tie. The image makes me think of the person behind that grin and of how many ways he has positively influenced me and inspired me. Despite his Alzheimer's, he is still able to hold a conversation with me and stay connected for 20-minute intervals. I hang on to these meaningful phone conversations and the short visits that we have. Neither of us likes small talk. We prefer silence to it. My father wasn't like the other fathers in our small town. At a certain point, he stopped taking the train into New York City to make the big bucks. Instead, he freelanced, playing tennis in the summer months and paddle tennis in the winter. He spent his time painstakingly restoring the dilapidated Victorian that had originally been built by Captain Harstrom in 1867. It was a major fixer-upper when we rolled into town in 1967. By the time I returned from college, the house had been transformed, but he never stopped refining every inch and every corner. Now his masterpiece belonged to another family. I can't remember how old I was exactly, but I distinctly remember a day trip into New York City. My father was at the wheel and my mother was beside him, and they were engrossed in conversation, seemingly unaware that I was in the back seat, immediately after pointing out a hospital built over a bridge. See that building? I worked on that project, my dad casually said. Since it was just me in the car and my siblings were not present, they would typically forget that I had ears. My mother was guffawing and slapping her thighs loudly. "Oh, no, Bert, you didn't," she shrieked. My father had this quiet grin of his. "Oh, yes, I did. I most certainly did." My father had just recounted the Christmas party at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, which was a respectable architectural firm where he had worked for some time. I don't think he enjoyed the commute to New York, where he was one of the many peons working at a drafting table. He had drawn the office manager for his Secret Santa. Walking from Midtown to 10th Avenue to the S&M district, he had picked up a WIP. Then he walked back to Midtown and stopped at Bloomingdale's. He chose a large box and had it tastefully custom gift wrapped. He had his trench coat on and was ready to bolt out the door to get to Grand Central to take the last New Haven line back home to his family. Watching her lick her lips in anticipation and then slam the lid down in paranoid fashion was all he needed to see. She was horrified, apparently. I watched in amazement how he chuckled with pleasure at the memory of how this obnoxious person had responded. My father's humor could at times be a bit twisted, and he could also be a big tease. When I'm not bolting out of bed, I lie there and contemplate the many layered aspects of my father's persona. This was the man who played Dvorak's New World Symphony on Sundays while the family had bagels and lox, or something deep and sultry like Smetana's The Moldo. This is the man who sat with me as a youngster and taught me how to write the entire alphabet in perfect capital letters, which annoyed my first grade teacher to no end because she had to retrain me to write in lowercase. This was the man who would watch old black and white movies while mom was upstairs soundly sleeping. I would creep down the stairs and watch him snack and catch him snacking on cookies. I won't tell if you won't tell was his favorite line. He introduced me to the French film The Wages of Fear and Grandpa's favorite, Some Like It Hot, and numerous other films with Gene Hackman or classics like 400 Blows by Truffaut. Dad could be highbrow and he could also be sophomoric, like a certain scene from Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles. Always there to listen, Dad still asks the same question. When was the last time you spoke to your brother and sister? It's up to you. You are the eldest after all. And then he closes the phone call with, I love you, baby. I guess I will always be his first baby, and he will always be my daddy.
Oh, so sweet. So sweet. Anybody who would like to unmute and give any feedback to our friend Susan. We have a heart from Big Electric Cat and several comments in the chat. Really nice. I really loved the highbrow and sophomoric and just the many physical descriptions of him. So Liz Hatherall says, so warm, beautiful family thumbnail history. So, okay. How did that feel to read, Susan?
Good, because I really just busted it out a couple of days ago, you know.
It is it's a really important thing though, a really important passage to have read it out loud. It becomes real.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, you definitely don't want to miss the chat. Very sweet things being said. I would love to have met your father, things of that nature. Okay. So it's to me now, and I'm just filling in because I love to be read too, but somebody couldn't come. But I'm the host and I run the 100 Writing Days of Summer, which we've been writing together all summer long. So, okay, am I going to read my bio? I guess so. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So I've been writing this comedic novel for 5 years called Crushing Debt. I hate to admit that. During my many writing sessions with dedicated, serious writers like we're hearing from tonight, I finished a full draft, a first plot pass, and will soon be doing a secondary character pass, a funny pass, and lastly, a worldview pass. I'm going to rewrite it 5 times. I hope to have finished all the rewrites by the end of summer, as we are now writing together 9 times a week for the most part. So, okay. Mutal. Okay. Excerpt from the novel Crushing Debt. It was still dark when the baby woke her. She reached over to snuggle her in as she undid her shirt and bra under the sleeping bag. In the dim light of the street lamp, Darby saw Ava latch on and smile up at her impishly, as if announcing what Darby's next sensation would be. Whoa, Darby said. You've got a pants load. Whew. She waved off the stink. Wow, she said, as she leaned up on her elbow to reach for the diaper bag. While she had her butt cheek off the ground, pulled her phone out of her back jeans pocket. 5:13. I guess this day is getting started. Darby acquiesced to the urgent needs of her baby daughter. One thing at a time, she coaxed her eager little mouth off the breast long enough to clean her up. Ava fussed, but then made happier noises once her bitty butt was clean, dry, and re-diapered. I never thought we'd be here. I'd be here, Darby thought, as she cleaned her baby for the 1,000th time. Never thought I'd be raising a baby on the streets of LA. Her brow furrowed as her young face went dark, sad, as Ava's fretting soothed to coos and laughs. Darby's anxious thoughts also disappeared, and she returned her daughter's smile. That's better. Now mommy needs to pee, and then we can get back to breakfast. Her breasts were full, her right tit still loose under the flowy shirt. Ava was adept. She rooted around with her hands to line up the breast and get back to nursing. Come on, give me a minute, Darby said, coming to a stand. She ducked under the canvas flap quietly and left the tent. It was going to be hot, they said, but right now it was chilly and gray. There was no sign of the brutal LA sun. The air was crisp, cool, and it was quiet all around them. She headed to the porta potty up under the overpass that they all used. They were lucky to have it. She hated taking Ava in there. It was tight quarters for the two of them. Everyone was still asleep, so she copped a squat next to the cement abutment and let it flow out downhill between her legs. She was getting good at this. Her Birkenstock stayed dry. It was a long pee, so she let Ava, ever impatient, latch on again. What would my mom think? Darby pondered aloud. And what would she think? Here was her beautiful daughter of 26 years, squatting in Hollywood with a baby, her grandchild. If she could just be in the moment with Darby and Ava, she might appreciate the details. How strong Darby looked, thinner and content, despite things that might have bothered her a year earlier. Her thick brunette hair had grown out of its expensive style that she wore in their Tony, New Jersey suburb. Her nails were trim but unmanicured. Even though her jeans and shirt looked dirty, her hands were clean, and the cute little receiving blanket that cradled Ava looked brand new. She might have noticed how much the two of them looked alike, especially around the eyes, merry and intelligent. She might have seen how much drive the baby gave the mother. Cut! Yelled a producer from the small, sleepy patch of crew following her and filming. Jesus, now what? Asked Clint, the cameraman. You really think they're going to let us use footage of a breastfeeding mom squatting to urinate in public? Wanda asked. She was the segment producer. You don't know. That's up to Mercy to decide. Let's just get the footage, he said. Mercedes Jones was the showrunner and typically not opposed to controversial footage. Leave her alone. Let's get some breakfast, Wanda said. That's a wrap on Darby for now. The cameraman, lighting guy, and intern headed toward the breakfast tent. Darb, don't give them stuff they can use on the internet, Wanda warned. Doesn't my contract say you can't use anything with nudity? Darby asked. Yeah, but you agreed to allow footage of you nursing. Besides, stuff leaks. Look at those bozos. If they can make a little extra cash from TMZ, you don't think they're gonna? Shit happens. Okay. Well, we'll pull you for a confessional in about an hour, Wanda told Darby. At the overturned trash can? Yeah, we'll meet there and I can take the baby. We'll go over your thoughts on the panhandling challenge. Do you think the baby gave you an unfair advantage? Darby started to answer. Hold that thought, the young producer said, smiling. Wanda walked away, hurrying to catch up with her partner and cameraman. Okay, Darby watched jealously as the crew went off to the craft service table for coffee, Danish, and scrambled eggs. She could smell it all. A few weeks earlier, Darby had gotten herself into this troubling episode, quite literally. She had applied with a self-tape, auditioned on Zoom, had video callbacks during which she explained over and over again to dubious casting managers, producers, and eventually to Mercy herself that she would love to be on the show, but not without her baby. Mercy was the first in that long line of behind-the-scenes people to see the opportunity in that. We want her, Mercy later told the network, who had already nixed the idea. We need her. But her debt is way over our prize budget, and the baby part is just insane, replied Margaret Wallace, SVP for Content Acquisition at the American Dream Network. Legal doesn't like the liability, and finance won't approve a contestant with $1 million in debt. It was final in Maggie's estimation. Except if, Marcy began. And we can't put the baby through those hoops that we put contestants through, Maggie emphasized. Exactly, Mercy smiled to herself. Was Maggie getting it yet? There's no way a young mother and baby are going to get all the way to the end. It's a win-win. We get all the publicity, and it will be everywhere. And Darby and her baby go home probably in week 1 or 2. Maggie demurred. 2 words, breastfeeding cam. Yeah, get her in. I'll get the sign-off, said Maggie. How are the rest of the contestants shaping up? Well, we're on for Wednesday night premiere. Everyone's here. They'll be in the audience, of course. They each hope they'll be on the show, but no one is guaranteed. Okay, then, let's have a great season. Duh, thought Mercy. The end. Okay. Thank you, Martha. So you can unmute yourself if you want to say anything. And everybody understood that was a game show. I was reading it going, oh, I wonder if people are following. Anyway, okay. Okay, 3 new messages. I didn't see that. Okay. Next we have, who do we have next? Michael Shaika. Michael, you ready? You have to, I'm going to mute everybody and you have to unmute yourself.
That was great, Julie. I'm sorry, I had to run to the bathroom.
Oh, that's all right. So I'm muting everybody, but you have to unmute yourself, okay?
Oh.
Okay. And while he's unmuting himself, look at, I'm getting good at this. I'll go ahead and start.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Michael says he's a sentient artist expressing self as novelist dedicated to beauty and truths. Experienced in cottage industry luxury fashion, he has mastered the art of hand painting silk yardage. His writing subject matter consists of crafting as a lifestyle and mentally layered with deepening human themes. This summer, I felt rewarded to take part in Julia's 100 Writing Days of Summer, and he's completing the final revision of his manuscript and hope to submit a series of query letters to prospective agents. So Michael runs three of our writing sessions, so he's on staff practically. Okay, Michael, I'm going to mute myself. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, start with your title.
This is an excerpt from Abra's Way, Earth Goddess of Starseed. There's only 3 characters in the scene. Abra, the Earth Goddess, the narrator, who is a lynx, and Kit Fox, whose name is Alistair. Okay. Near dusk, Abra's watercraft is beached before me. I wander towards a small island floating upon the bog. All around are vacated nests, plentiful with eggs. On the far side of the island, I sight Abra gathering firewood. As she arranges a collection of dead branches, sticks, and debris into a stone circle, I head to the back corner of the island, into pricklebush to explore. In the center of the island is a small glade. In a mound of giant In the center of the island, in a small glade, is a mound of gigantic strawberries, the size of melons. Some are overripe, some are whole, others are half-eaten or underripe. As I make my way through the mound, I am joined by a hummingbird. The iridescent green bird, swiveling on wings, places its beak through the juiciest part of the ripest berry. In imitation of the hummer, I place my forefangs into the ripest part of an overripe strawberry. Delicious, I think, as I suck the insides past my molars and down my throat. Swerving into sight, the white butterfly flurries in figure 8s as I consume a second fermented berry. After ingesting as many as I can, I return to the campsite. Unconcerned with the trail of ruby red residue flowing down my chest, I show myself to Abra. Shaking her head oddly, Abra goes about tending to the fire pit. Delighted to witness food preparation, I watch as she slices roots and herbs into an intricately carved bowl of jade. Singing to herself, Abra hangs a string of herbs over the fire pit. With animation, she places the herbs in a clay pot, moving her lips and hands in what looks like an incantation. Go, she shouts, breaking the rhythm and pointing directly at me. Turning my head, I lay down to rest. When I awake, Abra is pouting whilst trimming fingernails with tiny silver scissors. Folding the scissors into a tiny pocket knife, she laughs, she sighs. During the final rays of sunset, Abra raises the hammock between fir trees. From the corner of my eye, I catch sight of Alistair, sporting a pelage that glows gold in the setting sun. In his jaws is the limp body of the white crane. Dragging the crane closer to the campsite, he prances up to Abra with it. As he places it before her, Abra looks distraught. Ignoring him, Abra continues in bedtime preparations. Slightly uncomfortable, I settle myself slowly into a mound of crickets and sedge grass. The chirping takes hours to converge into quiet darkness. When Abra finally climbs into the hammock, the shrill of crickets returns, lulling me into sleep. Awakening at pre-dawn, I saunter towards the girl's hammock. Sniffing the breeze, I see she is cuddled up with a wounded rabbit and 2 sleeping ducklings. Alistair sleeps directly below her. Lying on my back, far from the campsite, I connect to the stars. Calculating our position on Earth, I begin receiving sensory downloads, envisioning the geography and landmarks of this particular territory. At dawn, I venture out in search of food. The throaty simulations from a nightingale mimic a family of grouse. This alerts me to potential food possibilities. Turning on itself, my stomach craves the solidity of game meat. Locating the nest several paces ahead of me, I stalk in. Pouncing on the covert, 3 partridges fly skywards to the drumming of wings and hearts. Cutting sharp angles through the air with my paws, I watch in slow motion as one drops, another lands in my mouth. 3 others are smothered under my hind paws. After consuming my most direct hits, I return to the campsite, full of feathers clinging to my chin and jawline. Eagerly, I wait on a patch of sedge grass beside the fire pit with corpses arranged before my outstretched paws. At sunrise, Aber stretches their arms and peers at me from above the hammock. Startled at the offerings before me, Z clenches her jaw and sighs. Projecting an image of myself guiding Aber through the wilderness, I fend off all kinds of beasts, imagining Aber caressing my silver plaid coat of fur. Z smiles at me comfortably. Slowly, Aber gets to her feet from the minimal swing of the hammock. Z picks up the spear, bow, and arrow, and Saber asking me, "What do you want, Pishu?" Pointing an instrument of protection tentatively at me, I visualize us arriving together at the sanctuary. The crossbow drops from shoulder level. Releasing the spear, Z rubs sleep from her eyes as I continue to envision a night scene. Myself fighting a savage jackal intent on attacking Zer. Placing the bow with the arrow on the ground, Aber goes to the fire pit. Kicking away one of the partridges, Z yells, "Shoot!" to me. Immediately, I skedaddle out of sight. Throughout the morning, whilst performing breakfast maneuvers, Aber's right eye remains firmly on my hiding spot or on myself as I return to rest beside the offerings. Alistair is not surprised to find me at the site. Darting his eyes quickly to the grouse and back to mine, he prances towards me. After inspecting the finery, Alistair places both partridges carefully in his mouth. Heading towards the strawberry part of the bog, I saunter after him. As the morning opens up, it brings on heat. While traversing the bog ahead of my comrades, I encounter the regular bursting of wildlife. Eider ducks, relocating ahead of me, remain leaders of the symphonic progression. At the bow of Aber's shellcraft, Alistair stands rigidly at attention, yipping at every nearby flocking fish. Midday, the stream winds into a heavily wooded area of spruce trees. Growing high on their banks, white pines tilt over a fast-flowing creek. Intuitively, I sense that within half a day's journey, the creek will flow into a great river that runs south for about a 4th night of travel, knowing with certainty that at the end of another day of pacing, the river will flow between several lakes into an even larger river that will flow northwest towards the sea. Suddenly, a faintness of voices emerge from the southeastern breeze, fellow voyagers from the passage ahead, wavering scents of essential oils similar to Aber's. To my nostrils, I race ahead to investigate. That's it.
It's nice. I love this. I love the like the specificity, tiny silver scissors, my nostrils, the whole, you can really just like understand the granular level they are in relation to the earth or in relation to nature, which I just really love that. Anybody else want to unmute and tell Michael anything that they noticed or cared about as they were?
My friend lives in Bend, Oregon, and she just texted me a unicorn. She loved this.
Nice. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much, Michael. That was great. Next, we have Heidi Hunter. I'm going to mute everybody. And Heidi, you unmute yourself while I go and fish up your bios to share with people. So Heidi is an artist, a creative flow facilitator, and a somatic instructor who has moved from paralyzing fear of the blank page to writing a book, Resuscitate, coming back to life through connected play. A play on resuscitate. And it will be part illustrated memoir, part playbook, and celebrate creative expression as a healing and transformative tool accessible to everyone. She began the 100 Writing Days of Summer committed to showing up each day, and she has, with a playful approach and enjoy writing in community. She's loved the challenging her creative chop by incorporating the daily prompts into her actual memoir. I hope to test the waters for her memoir by memoir writing in these public reading sessions. We will have 2 more this summer, which is what I think she's referring to, 1 per month. So Heidi, welcome. Start with your title, the title of what you're reading, okay?
Thanks, Julia. Happy the Clown. I'm 10 years old, backstage at the Shrine Circus, and I whined and begged to get here, especially on a school night. When we entered through the stage door, the upstairs was a vibrant explosion, popping with kernels of fun. But now in the underbelly of the Winnipeg Arena, all I smell is stale smoke, sawdust, and pee. What was I even thinking? Really, I just wanted to spend time with my father. My dad places his shiny camera cases to the right of the stage entrance. He pats the larger case and says, "Here you go, best seat in the house." I perch on the cold metal, my bum between the handle and the clasp. My green patent leather purse is on my lap, holding nothing but a saran-wrapped damp cloth for sticky fingers. I remind him, "But what about my candy floss?" "Not yet. We'll get it on the way out after the parade," he says, rushing to put on his white gloves. "Just stay here. You're safe in the shadow. Keep out of that stage light so the audience doesn't see you." "But Dad, you said..." Reaching over to me, he scratches at a spot on my corduroy jumper and gasps, "Oh no, what is this?" I look down and instantly his cotton finger snaps up under my nose. "Ha, gotcha," he exclaims, as if he won a game. I rub my nose. Oh, I fell for it again. I got to get Pierre from the car. I watch his orange wig disappear into a sea of fezzes. I remind myself everything's okay. If I need help, I can go upstairs to Mr. Nickel at the back gate. People are bustling all around me, so I pretend I, excuse me, so I pretend I have the important job of watching over his expensive Leica. I consider pulling out my candy floss cloth and wiping the case to just look busy. Excuse me. Across the forbidden light in front of me, I peer into the darkness on the other side of the entrance. There, tucked under the sloped ceiling, I spot a row of covered cages. That's where the big cats are. Through a rip in the tarp, I catch a glimpse of a tiger circling round and round himself. My dad's clown name is Happy, a lesson in irony right there. He's also a magician, a hypnotist, and a photographer all rolled into one. He performs everywhere, whether it's in front of a large audience or while buying his bright 74 at the liquor store. Customers come to our studio for their portrait and leave laughing. The white polka dots on his red shirt bounce between people as he makes his way out. He's almost dancing. He puts on those giant red and green shoes and it's like he comes to life. Men huddle around him as if he's sharing a secret. Then there's a burst of laughter and he's off to someone else. He knows the funniest jokes, off limits to me, but grown-ups love them. Always prepared, he carries a little black book in his breast pocket filled with only punchlines. There's no pocket in his costume, but tonight I saw him quickly flip through that little book before locking it in the glove compartment of the Cadillac. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls." Immediately, I get that vibrating feeling in my chest. But when the rows of flagpoles duck under the entrance and spring up proudly on the other side, I don't feel what I usually do. The pipe and drum band are way louder up close, and they look silly in their kilts and knee socks carrying bagpipes like plaid clutch bags under their arms. I smile so they think I like the sound, but underneath, I'm clenching my teeth. I keep watching for my dad's clown shoes and Pierre's gray pom-pom feet coming down the stairs. Where are they? The lights dim, and the Swami band in fake beards and curly-toed slippers slither past me in the dark. My feet pull back, and I feel my own toes curl in. I press my calves into the chilly camera case. I can't see the parade from here, but I know it by heart. Right now, the leader is holding his huge curved sword above his head with both hands and twisting and turning it because I see its glimmer reflected in the glasses of people in the crowd. My dad's still not back, and the green and white marching band is already on stage. My eyes are glued on the stairs, and I keep time to their Sousa march, gripping my thighs right, left. Now they're playing my mom's college song. Oh, I wish she were here. The spotlight will be on the glockenspiels for their solo. They must feel so proud playing shiny music that makes people put their hands over their hearts and close their eyes, just like my mom does when she hears this song. I wonder if she misses the States. Time for the clowns, and where is he? I can't see him. My heart starts bass drumming in my throat. At the very last moment, he and Pierre come flying down the stairs and join the group just in time for their entrance, but too late to say hi to me. Happy waves at the crowd, living up to his name. He makes our big French poodle walk on his hind legs around the entire arena. When Pierre stands beside him, he's even taller than me. Happy carries a giant flashing Instamatic camera. Everything in my life is Kodak. Really, I'd rather be here than in the audience. One time, I was seated in the red section between my mother wearing white gloves and my sister in a curly wig. Those wooden seats pop up when empty, so I must have been really little because my mom had to put her purse to weigh down the front of my seat so it wouldn't swallow me. That year, a gorilla escaped from its cage, jumped the rails, and climbed into the crowd. The trainer pulled a pistol and fired shots in the air. A siren wailed, and searchlights circled everywhere. Then bright lights were in my eyes. To my terror, the gorilla made a beeline to us and climbed onto my sister's lap. I froze, staring at my mom's purse, wishing my chair would just swallow me alive. I can't remember what happened next. I don't know when I found out it was just a guy in a gorilla suit. Usually someone in the audience was in on the joke, but my father convinced them that it would be hilarious to use us. He said to me, next time, he'd get the gorilla to pull off my sister's wig. My mom said he was only joking, but I knew he wasn't. In my early 30s, a lifetime of childhood secrets caught up with me. A grease paint specter in a polka dot shirt loomed behind me, breathing down my neck. Suddenly, bending its knees into the backs of mine, I buckled under its weight into debilitating depression. Despite making my living on the stage, no amount of performing could save me, and I had no choice but to surrender and face my demons.
Thank you for that. That's sharing your story. I think you have a lot of feedback in the chat. Anybody want to unmute and give Heidi some feedback? There were so many great phrases in there. I'm sure you'll see them in the chat.
Heidi, after the intro, I found myself clinging to every word.
Mhm.
And just the way you read it, and also the language and the story.
I would agree.
Till the end.
Thank you. Thank you
Like,
so much.
that's how I like to read a book.
Anybody else have something they'd like to say? Susan, Susie, I'm sorry.
I can't wait to read it. Every word is like juicy and delicious like you are.
Thank you.
Well, it's just a great story. The idea of being in the circus. We all wanted to run away to the circus. So it's also just a very relatable situation.
And very descriptive and sensory, like you just hit all the right notes.
Bodily.
So we're there with you.
Agreed. Okay. Anybody else for Heidi before we move on? Okay, we're on our last reader, our friend Martha Rand. Martha, I'm going to mute everybody. While you unmute yourself, I'm going to tell people a little bit about you. So here we have Martha Rand reading the Broadway. Oh no, she's reading something new. The Page of Cups. Martha began working with tarot and astrology in her early teens. She learned originally from her family, which combines Celtic, English, Eastern European, Jewish, and deep American roots. Her flash fiction has been anthologized, and she has written professional pieces for psychology and astrology publications. As a psychotherapist and coach, her work is both trauma-informed and healing-centered. Okay, so Martha, whenever you're ready, I'll mute myself. Start with your title, please.
Page of Cups. Willie Washington, the construction foreman at Marketto's, would show up at the office a couple of times a week. Generally, he'd get there mid-morning, depending on what site he'd been working. He'd say, "How's it going, Jono?" to the boss's son, whom he'd known forever. Jono would nod, "It's all good." Washington would lean in as though only Jono was meant to hear. "Free, white, and 21, how could it be bad?" And he'd guffaw. Willie'd arranged a little party on Jono's 21st birthday earlier that summer. The guys brought in a case of beer and put it in the office refrigerator, an old, off-white, out-of-date one that had been replaced in some kitchen renovation the company had done. They got him a Carvel ice cream cake, 1 layer chocolate, 1 layer vanilla with Oreo cookie crumble in between, like they'd been doing every summer. Jono's 21st summer was the summer Sharmila worked in the office. She was young, but not that young, not jailbait young. She was flirty, tiny-waisted, short. She danced around the office and spoke in a Caribbean lilt, mostly to herself. Sometimes Michelle, the office manager, would shush her if they were trying to concentrate. Sharmila had at least another year of high school, what with moving to New Jersey from another country, and provided she didn't fail anything again. Jono's dad sponsored kids from the Votech High School. They'd come work for a summer or part-time during the school year. To get such a job, they'd need a recommendation from the school and a letter from a local politician, and their family had to fall below a certain income level. It was the company's way of training future workers, supporting those in need, and getting some positive political recognition. Sharmila was one of those sponsees. Every morning that summer, Jono opened up the office. He liked being there alone, first in. He liked the way it made him seem as though he was in charge. Having the office to himself provided a quiet time, and he could do what he chose. There were emails he could open, websites he could check out. His mother wouldn't be walking in on him. No one would be knocking on his bedroom door like at home. Sharmila came in early too. After the first week, he'd realized that he'd like it if she came in a little earlier too, so he told her, "At a job, you look more responsible if you get here early." Sharmila was looking to please. There was a good energy between them. And all day long, every day that summer, they had a special relationship. There was never any comment when he brought her a McDonald's caramel mocha frap, or when she came back from lunch with an iced Dunkin' Donuts coffee, extra whipped cream the way he liked. It just made the job a lot more fun to be at, for him. And he thought for her too. One day, Michelle, Mr. Marketto's secretary, came in earlier than usual. She heard the laughter of 2 people coming from behind the closed door of her boss's office. She recognized the voices. Quietly, she let herself out, closed the door, and went to the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner until her regular time in. The rest of the summer, Michelle came in just on time. September 1st, Jono and Sharmila were both in early. Sharmila was excited. She told Jono the good news. She said, "Jono, we're going to get married." And the way she said married sounded like she was ringing a bell with her voice. "Don't tell anybody that," he said, shushing her. "We are," she adjusted her tone to a whisper, "because we have a baby." When Jono's dad came in that morning, Jono told him about this strange and unexpected conversation. Mr. Marchetto called Sharmila into his office. When Sharmila came out, she whispered to Jono that she was excited about the secret. Mr. Marchetto let her finish the summer at the job because there were only a few days left before she'd go back to school. They gave her a goodbye party with a Carvel cake that Friday. Sharmila's baby was born in February. He was born with some problems. Willie Washington would see Sharmila walking with the baby stroller to school later that spring. The Votech had a program for pregnant teens and teen moms to finish school with their babies. Sharmila was in that program for her senior year. Mr. Marchetto helped Sharmila's family with medical expenses from that baby. Michelle explained to people when they asked that he was just good that way. Some of Willie's construction team helped keep the house Sharmila's family lived in from falling into disrepair. Sharmila and Jono did not cross paths again in that town. Every Christmas, Marchetto Construction received a card with a picture of Sharmila and the baby. It went up on the board behind reception with other cards from customers and town officials. The end.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was really shocked by we have a baby. Anybody else really shocked by that? That was a big surprise twist for me.
I really love the description of it. Sharmila, that's her name? I really love the description of her in the beginning. That was just like, I felt like, I don't know, it's like, it felt like, I really, I don't know, it just felt really relatable. The language that you used to describe that whole scene.
Thank you.
Okay.
I really loved the story arc. It was very smooth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have something for Martha? Okay. Well, I want to thank all our readers and our listeners. This has really been just a nice little watershed moment for all of us to share something we've been working on quietly, separately. And it was, I think, very nice just for us to hear how each other writes or what each other is working on, but also really great to welcome in such friends and listeners as you all. So thank you for coming. And if that's all, we will call it a night. Okay, you can unmute if you want. I cannot unmute you. You have to unmute yourself. Love being read to, says Liz. That's nice. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Deborah. Where, Christian?
Thank you, my friends, for coming.
Yeah. Thanks to all their friends for coming. It's really nice to have a reading that is, a nice audience, a sizable audience. Okay, so I believe that ends this for today. I just want to give you guys a little minute if you want to say anything to your favorite reader or who you came to support before I turn off.
Are you saving the chat, Julia? I couldn't seem to save it on that.
I'm not sure it lets you anymore.
I went to save it at the 3 dots at the bottom.
Okay.
And that works?
Where it said more and save chat.
Oh, okay. There, I got it. Thanks.
Meeting group chat. And does it let you? Where does it say save chat?
Yeah.
I should have not recorded this part. It's so enthralling. Pause recording.